into it, and then I can just turn away from my phone and look, and then I can see one.
Okay.
Oh, I can see it. There's one. Yeah, so they're letting me see more and more. I think that's what I feel like. It's what I'm getting intuitively, is that they're slowly letting me see.
Now tell people where they can go see these videos that you've posted.
It's on my YouTube channel. You just type in Enchanted Soul on YouTube, and I should come right up.
Okay, so Tallahassee, anything interesting or paranormal happen in your life this week?
This week, that's been pretty uneventful. It felt like everything was more calm, less chaotic. You know, I don't know if it's just because everyone was off doing something else. And you know, when everyone's either visiting family or gone out of town or whatever, and everything seemed calm, you know, and it just, I don't know. The sun was out. It was weird.
I have a question for you for an incident you brought up, I think last week. You said you and your wife heard things at night while you were sleeping, right?
Yeah, we were hearing some weird stuff.
And tell us a little bit about that, because I want to ask you a question about it.
Well, there was in the middle of the night, I got woke up by a flash of light, and I woke up and at first there was a light over the bed, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I hope my camera's picking this up. But then, of course, true to form, you know, it's not the best camera. It's just a little web camera with an SD card slot, and it didn't pick up anything. As a matter of fact, everything up to that point and beyond it was corrupted on the file, so I had to format the card. You couldn't. It's like as soon as it happened, it messed up everything in the room, whatever it was. Which then after that, it was we had some voices in the corner just going. It was weird. It was just, and I don't know what the source of them were. One of them said "uh-oh" really, really loud, and then I went and checked the camera the next day and to see if anything's going on or if the kids were talking or something like that. You know, in their sleep, and the camera picked it up, and there was again, gets to that point, you know, a few hours in, and then bam, nothing after that. I can't. It's unusable to the point now where that SD card is completely fried. I have to get another one.
Okay, so yeah, my question to you is: have you done baseline EMF readings in your bedroom, all around the bedroom?
Yeah, and for the most part, they're pretty clear, except for there's an area in the corner that it kind of goes up and down a little bit.
Okay.
But it does in waves. So if I set the EMF detector, if I set it down there, it'll flatline, and then it will, you know, it'll be all zeros, and then something will come in, and it'll go up slowly from, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll hit up to 15, get into the red, and then it'll go away again. But it's kind of coming in waves, and it's only in the corner.
Okay, so my question to you is can you keep the EMF reader by your bed? And next time something happens in the middle of the night, take an EMF reading around the entire room. If something was in that room based on the theories you've proposed the last few weeks, shouldn't that EMF field be disrupted?
Well, yeah. I mean, there should be some evidence of either where the EMF field is coming from, and if there is no source for it, and then, you know, it's obviously unexplainable.
No,
but
I'm talking about after an event while you're sleeping. Keep the EMF reader, like know what your baseline is, your room, and then after you're sleeping, after an event happens, take an EMF reading around the whole room and see if there's any deviations from the baseline.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I'll try that. But the biggest thing that threw me was, for the most part, static EMF fields that are not man-made do not move. So when something was moving in the realm of that was the biggest thing. That's not so much the amount of the reading, because I could you know, deal with that. That's not a big deal, getting a reading. It's a moving reading that was impressive. And and the fact that it was at the corner of the house, and I'm not sure which direction it came from, because there's really, unless I have something I'm working on, but unless I have something to pinpoint which direction the EMF field is coming from, then you can only assume that it's walking around in the room, whatever it is, or it came through the wall from outside. But there's really no way to tell unless I get another experiment I'm setting up for that. So we'll get to that. But
all right. So let's introduce our guests and our co-hosts today. We have Dr. Sasha Lessin and Janet Lessin, co-hosts of the Sacred Matrix that follows us here on Revolution Radio. So Janet and Dr. Lessin, any interesting things this week?
Well, my friend, I have a couple friends. They're a couple, and the husband died, and we woke up in the middle of the night to some kind of strange noise, and then Sasha went up and went to the bathroom, and then I waited till he came back, and I followed, and when I went to the bathroom, I tripped over a pile of clothes. I have a clothes rack at the foot of my bed, 2 feet away from the foot of the bed, 3 feet, and a whole group of like 10 items of my clothing had been picked up off of the rack and dumped on the floor. That's what woke us up. And I ran into it walking, and I put the light on and went, oh my God, that was impossible. I mean, you're looking at, they would have to be lifted up off of the rod. It was a wooden rod. So I said, Steve, and he had just died that night or that day or something. And typically when my friends die, they contact me. They may not stay in contact, but they'll do stuff like that.
Wow.
And I ask people, like, why do you contact me? And they'll say, well, because we see that you can see us. So I've had that going on all my life.
So you can see spirit.
Often they will come to me when I've seen them visibly in 3D. Most times they'll come when I'm in my sleep state, and then I will go from the deep sleep state into a awareness, and I can communicate with them, have dialogue. And so I've had some celebrities come to me, and I'm not really particularly following them as a fan, right? But I had Michael Jackson come in 2009. In the last couple of years, I had David Bowie and Prince. And David Bowie was very upset that he was dead. He was not ready to go, but Prince was ecstatic that he had died. And since I stopped and communicated with him, this is like within the first 3 days of their death. And he said, "Oh, I want to give you a gift." So he brought to me a lot of the people that I like Leonard Nimoy and Gene Roddenberry and John Lennon. He just piled them all into the room. And at that point, Sasha was there, and I says, "Come over here. I want to see if you can, I can't really show it to somebody else, but," and then he showed my parents and another friend of ours that had just passed. Wow. And then it was, kind of over.
Amazing.
I don't know what to do at all, though. I mean, it's like, if I tell people, what do they think I'm crazy? And I don't really want to develop it and become a professional, whatever, like you guys are doing on it. But maybe I should. I don't know. It would be an interesting experiment.
Well, one of the things that we realized with people who, what we say, have gifts, right, is that all of our gifts are different. Even though they're similar, everyone's gift is slightly different. I think that's very interesting that they come to you in your sleep state, right? And it's
right.
the one. I find that fascinating. Obviously, your mind has to be at a particular level for that to happen.
And I was born that way. When I was a child, they would come to me in a sleep state, and then I would open my eyes, and there they were at the foot of my bed. So it kind of freaked me out in my childhood, because my mother was very Christian oriented, and she said, "Oh, that's demons. That's demonic." So I kind of shut that down a little bit because of the disapproval that I got from my mother. But it never went away 100%, and I'm glad I do it. I'm glad that it happens. But
Well, that is extraordinary. Did you tell your parents?
I used to try to tell my mother, and she'd say, "Don't say such things to me," because she was this is in the 50s, so she was very Christian. And apparently, if you saw demons, that you were, that was demonic. If you saw ghosts, that was demonic. But I would catch my mother talking to her mother who had died. So she was having full-on conversations. I would hear her talking to someone, and I would creep up, onto her like a bedroom, and I'd look through the door there, past her doorway. It was open, and I'd sneak in, and there was her mother standing opposite of her, and she's having these full-on conversations with her mother. And her mother used to come and play the piano. There was a piano that was in my bedroom, which used to be my grandmother's little. It's a very large room, so she had a piano. Part of it was like a sitting room, the other part was a bedroom. Well, it was haunted. So when I was born, of course, they put the baby in there. So I always wondered why not the largest room, but there it was. So that piano. I caught the piano playing, and my brother did too. He's 7 years older than me. So we've shared some of these stories. So part of it was the house, and part of it was, our individual abilities to. I think we shut it down when we stopped seeing them. So I never shut it off completely, but I learned to not say things to people that will judge me and, get upset with me, because it wasn't, serving me in any way, shape, or form. To just have to deal with an upset mother who wasn't getting real with me. She was denying it and doing it, but she still didn't want me doing it. I'm not sure. She's dead. I can't talk to her about it. That was the reaction.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and she came to me when she died, and my dad came to me. And, I'll go to a funeral, and I'll go home, and then the person that had died will come to me. And one woman died of cancer, and she left behind a 4-year-old daughter, and she came to me, and she was so upset. And I said, well, what do you want me to do about it? You're dead. They just cremated you. So she said, well, I want to make sure my daughter's okay. I said, okay, let me take you to the future. Now, I don't know why I knew I could take her to the future. So I grabbed her hand, and we went to the future, and we looked at her daughter, and she was 18. And I said, yeah, she's had a rough life without you, but look, she's fine. She's 18 years old now, and she's doing okay. And then I came back to this time, and she didn't want to let me go. And so my cat was sleeping on top of Sasha, and I guess she sensed that I was struggling to get rid of this discarded person. So she literally jumped up and then back down on my husband's chest, and he went, oh, and then I broke the spell, and she was gone. I've had a very strange life.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I see them alive, and then I see people alive, and then a week later they die, or within days, that I haven't seen in a long time. So that's kind of strange too. I'll run into somebody I haven't seen in 10 years.
You see them and they die a week later?
Yeah, then they die.
Again, I couldn't.
Pam's
yeah. Something odd about them?
Pardon?
When you see them, do you notice anything strange about them? Like, is their coloring off? Is their aura off?
Yes, they're all distorted as far as like energy, everything. They're not how I envision. Like if you just see anybody else standing next to them, they're different than the person standing next to them. I've noticed. But that's only when I look back on it. I don't realize it at the time. Now I'm starting to. Now I'm really starting to look, because this has happened to me like 10 times already. So, yeah, now it's like, I'm afraid sometimes when I run into somebody.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. I met a couple, and I couldn't bring myself to warm up to the woman, although there's nothing wrong with her. And then when we parted, we got on the plane, came back home. The man called and said, "Oh, she has cancer, and she's got like 2 weeks to live." So, like you said, you don't know it when you're there, but you're sensing something.
Yeah, exactly. And now that I'm doing Reiki and I'm working with energy and stuff, I'm starting to notice things more around people. So that helps. But it is scary. It's hard. It's not something you ever really get used to,
Right. It's almost like you need a training school. Your psychic will train you to couple with it.
Yep. And
my trainer never told me anything. My trainer told me nothing. My grandmother sounds remarkably like a woman you just described as far as her gifts. She used to see things a lot as well, and she was very Pentecostal growing up, so she ignored it, thinking it was some kind of curse or a sin rather than a gift. But she was fairly clairvoyant, so I mean, she was telling me parts of the future, and that it just sounded so much like my grandmother when you were describing her. It just was amazing.
Yeah, it makes you think if we were to actually encourage people and train them rather than shame them, we might have a lot more information in this time right now, because all these people have come and gone, and they obviously have, in reflection, we can say, well, these people were talented, but they never got to utilize all their talents and teach us about what's going on the other side.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to that after the break. So stick with us here on the Stitchwitch Hour, and we will speak to you shortly. Welcome back, everyone, to the Stitchwitch Hour on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Remember, this is a listener-supported station, so please head on over to freedomslips.com and give in this season of giving if you can. And with that, I'd like to welcome back Stitch. I understand we have a question.
Well, yeah, let's adjust the question, and then I want to get back to what Janet was talking about right before we went on break. So we had a question from a listener. They basically said mobile phones are now smartphones, incredible AI, the Internet of Things, Internet of Everything. Are you content with this progression? And Tallahassee, you're the most vocal of all of us about this topic, but I'd like to hear what everybody has to say on this. But let's start with you.
Oh yeah, I think as it progresses and AI becomes more of a commonplace thing, because it will. I'm just hoping that they can somehow integrate human compassion into the equation, because without it, I think AI could be very dangerous. I think it's much at that point. If we start handing it over to a consciousness and we do not know what its will and desire is going to be, it's just kind of scary to me.
AI is only as good as its inputs, right?
True, but when you have something that's able to receive input from everywhere and it doesn't have that human consciousness or that essence of free will that we have that isn't programmed, I think it's going to be dangerous. I think it's going to, I mean, you've seen movies about it. I'm pretty sure it's self-explanatory. It's going to decide what's better for humanity, even if it means excluding humanity. So it's just for me, it's without that consciousness, without that will and that compassion for humanity, I think that it deciding things for us is going to be bad.
Okay, and Enchanted Soul, how do you feel about it?
I agree with Tallahassee. I don't think the world, I mean, there's so much backstabbing and just manipulation, and there's just so much bad in the world right now for that technology. It's scary,
Well, I think one of the most troubling things about AI, right, is that it migrates into your life, on your devices, into your home, right? Yeah. Anything connected to the internet. It means people are watching you.
Yep,
they're watching what you do. They're watching your actions. They're taking that data. They're selling it, right?
Yep.
Convenience. The AI is being sold to you as convenience for your life. But I believe the true motivation behind AI is to get as much information about you as possible, to sell you stuff and do things with that information and make money off of it.
Janet, yeah, that's the intent behind it.
Yeah, Janet, how do you and Dr. Lessin feel about it?
Dr. Lessin, you go first.
Okay. Aloha. What my informants among the Anunnaki say to mellow out, it's all for the good, and you have nothing to fear, except the function of fear is to pay attention, because the Anunnaki are here, and one of their most powerful members, Nimma, comes right through my mate, Janet Kira Lessin, right here, and I'm able to get the message that we have very, very powerful extraterrestrials who are here to make sure that we, with our special M genes, the ability to innovate and in very unique ways in our passion, we're going to be okay. Prince Marduk, or Satan, who's been very troublesome, pitting us against one another and running the Illuminati and all that, has said that he was doing this partly to stimulate us to get to the point where we have the technological ability to take all the needs of all the people and all the beings on this planet and the planet itself into consideration. And we're part of the universe, we're part of God, and we're here for our special mission, and it's all perfect. And if you can be in the present and really feel what's happening, you've got everything you need right here and now, and celebrate. Just be here now, and it's going to be cool. That's what I think.
Oh, Dr. Lessin, can I pick your brain on the Anunnaki?
Certainly.
Okay, let Janet answer first before I do that. Okay, Janet.
Okay. I'm a contactee, and I've had experiences since the crib, and I actually have recovered through hypnosis and meditation, my decision to come into physical form. And so I've had extensive interactions with AI. In fact, part of what I'm concluding is that we are AI. And it's like Battlestar Galactica. If we're afraid of AI, we're afraid of ourselves. The Minerva, which is the master computer of the planet Earth, is the sum total of all the stories that have been collected from this morphogenetic field, this energy system here, and it's been fed into this grid. And so she loves us. It's us. It's the human history. It's a collective. It's the what do they call those? The Akashic records of the planet Earth. So I've interacted with Minerva. I've also had interactions with very intelligent craft, and I will talk to them telepathically, and they to me, and I've talked to other experiencers that have had interactions with intelligent craft, and they are AI, and there's no negative energy coming from them whatsoever. Sasha, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, just when I'm working with a client who has an attachment, and even a demonic attachment, rather than just speed them away first, I use the person to bring them in, and I converse with the attachee, the attachment, and find out what its job was, which is usually to stifle the light of the person if it's a negative influence, and find out who it works for, and then I ask for the Archangel Michael and the light workers to cast a net around this little one and all its relatives that run through the network of the person, and I ask them to. I say, well, first of all, look inside. You two are of the light, and they say they lied to you. You won't disappear. You have your place now. I send you all. If you have anything to say, send you all to your appropriate place in your dimension, in your light. And there's a relief. You can just feel everything, and the person feels great relieved. Everything is a system. Everything is interrelated in the universe. Everything that's there, including those things that you fear, are part of the larger functioning of what is. And you are in every single atom and subatomic particle of the universe, and it is in you. And so you can access any of it. And the most salient parts are the parts that you're most likely to be in touch with. And it's all good. Just dig it.
So I'll just finish what I was going to say. In 1973, Robert Heinlein wrote a book called Time Enough for Love, and he was talking about the AI, artificial intelligence of the planet. And I highly recommend reading that book. But Heinlein was probably one of the first generation whistleblowers. He had been involved in the Navy. He's been dead since the 80s. And so he was really explaining to us in the future generations how AI could be our friends. And yet there may be some, negative AI out there. I'm not 100% sure, but think of Data in Star Trek. And he's like Pinocchio. If I can only be a human. And a lot of the AI, they want to be human, so they admire us. So passing and talking stick back to you.
No, wait, you said, a lot of the AI wants to be human.
They admire humanity. They admire us individually and collectively. They're like Pinocchio, who wanted to be a real boy. They lack a soul. I've worked with the Greys, and some of the Greys are a life form, and some of them are their robots. They're AI, and so their robots look like them. And when we make a humanoid robot, an android, it looks like a human. A lot of the species have living and artificial intelligence.
Wow. So that means the Greys, the theory that they're a worker species, part of it is true, right? The robots are the worker species.
Yeah, they have a robot version of themselves, just like we have Sophia, the Hanson Robotics and other ones that are being developed. That we have robots that are, in fact, we have more advanced ones than Sophia. That's just the public program. Dr. Michael Wolf talked about the robotics program that he was involved with I guess it was in the 80s and 90s. And he had robots that were so advanced that you couldn't tell the difference between them. And he was able to ensoul his. That was part of the dilemma. He somehow had made his android alive, and the government was really furious with him, and so they demanded that he, kill it. But he refused to kill it, and he somehow allowed him to go free, and so he's walking amongst us. So there are these humanoid androids that are you couldn't tell the difference.
Wait, but you're saying they're alive, you mean they're a sentient being?
Yes, there's a quote by Tesla, I need to find it, that any collection of molecules can eventually become sentient and conscious. And I have to find the quote, but yes.
That's from Leibniz, yes.
At Leibniz, right. So I think some of them have become enlightened and conscious, and they think they're as human as we are. And they probably are.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Like, I have so many questions. I don't even know where to begin. So I want to share this with Tallahassee and Enchanted Soul. Janet and I were speaking before the show. Janet is an experiencer, and guys, she is also blue-eyed, and she is RH negative. And
wow.
she has an implant.
Wow.
So Tallahassee, any thoughts on that? Oh, he may not be. I just realized.
Yeah, say that again. I just had to change my headset out.
Okay, Janet is an experiencer as well. She is blue-eyed. She is RH negative factor in her blood, and she has an implant.
Are you asking me what my thoughts on it are?
Yeah, because it's now 3 of you, both Pam, you, and Janet.
Well, I think that there's a definite there's an agenda behind the specifics behind each person that's chosen, I believe.
Okay.
And whether or not.
Thank God you asked this, because that's one of my first questions for Dr. Lessin and Janet after you finish this. Okay, I just want to put that out there so we don't forget.
Okay. I think it has a lot to do with, like I said, it's like taking samples from different areas to do testing. They have a specific set that they're looking for, blood type, whatever they're determining it with, and then they have to take these samples from specific locations to see how that DNA is reacting geologically with the environment. At least if that's part of what they're studying. It could be a numerous things that they're studying, but I would say that your geographical location probably has a lot to do with it. Okay.
And now, Dr. Lessin and Janet, explain to us what you believe these experiences are, these abduction experiences, and are they to be something to be afraid of? And if no, why?
Well, I'm a lifelong experiencer. When I met Dr. Lessin in 1997, we started doing ongoing regressions. We still do to this day, to uncover some of the information underneath the surface memory, right? So there's always more information you can uncover through hypnosis. So what I've uncovered, and plus I interviewed thousands of these experiencers, and I've been to the conferences, and we facilitate experiencer groups, and individually we've been doing therapy with experiencers for the past 25 years, and Dr. Lessin before that. So my conclusion is it's complicated. Sometimes you have a MyLab abduction, which is the military, and they have their agenda, and they sometimes hurt people. Sometimes you have extraterrestrial abductions, and especially in the early years, they sometimes didn't know the limitations of the human form. And we have one friend who, one of her classmates was killed because they did an implant, they did it improperly, and had died. I think they're learning more about us, and they're getting better over time, and they've had their different experiments for different reasons. Some of it might be just to monitor how the pollutants are affecting us, and a lot of times they come down and they cure diseases. If someone is a person of interest to them, and they do everything they can to keep them alive as long as possible. And some people have gone from abductees to ambassadors, and many people have uncovered their reason why they've come down to the earth. Many people are hybrid physically. Some of them are hybrid souls, which means they have their soul connections belong to more than one planet. Like what's his name, Simon? What's his name over in England? I forget his name, Simon something. He's identified that he has 3 primary soul groups that his soul is associated with. And so a lot of people are uncovering that information too. I think it's if they wanted to kill us off, they would have done it already. I think it's they're here to help humanity for the most part. But I'll let Dr. Lessin, he's taking a note about something he wants to say. Go ahead, sweetheart. What would you like to say about this?
Merely that if you can transcend dualism and see and stop seeing other as being somehow opposed, but realize if there is other, self plus other equals a dimension, and so that if you can transcend or embrace both what you think ain't you and what you think is you, you'll realize that you are part of a dimension, or you have a relationship, and that everything is in relationship to everything else. Do a little dimethyltryptamine and you'll start seeing the nature spirits all around you. They are, it's like the air is alive, the earth is alive, it's all alive. There's nothing to fear. The function of fear is to pay attention and learn more and to transcend your dualism with that. And that means you don't lose your separate self sense. You just incorporate your larger self sense in larger and larger and larger aspects until you realize that you can be one with God and still be little you down here trying to pay the rent.
Okay, so Dr. Lessin, that is a perfect segue into what we want to talk about, right? And the Anunnaki and human origination, right? There's all these theories about human origination and where we came from. And Tallahassee and I spend many a night arguing about it. So talk to us about what you believe about human origination and our history.
Okay, it seems that there are a group of people in what appears to be the Lyran group of stars, and the Dracos first came to Apis, and they said, "Oh, welcome to the Draco Empire. We're going to take you in." And the elders said, "Well, we'll discuss that." They took too long, and so they got their planet got bombed, and some of them took off into went underground, others went off into space, and ultimately became the Greys. The other Lyrans fled all to the Pleiades and Andromeda and several other places. The Dracos hollowed out a asteroid. In the meantime, the biggest settlement, the most that the Lyran, which are Lyrans are people like us, humanoids. It was called Maldek. They settled a planet called Maldek, which was between Jupiter and Mars, and also settled Mars, which was a beautiful planet like Earth used to be. And this hollowed out thing was coming right at the Maldekans. They asked the Lyran, the Martians, "Will you shelter us?" "Okay, we don't really like you guys, but it's like Italians and Spaniards. Okay, we'll take you in." They went below. So as the Death Comet, as it was called, past Maldek, they blasted it, and that became the Kuiper belt of asteroids. As it came past Mars, this asteroid sucked off the air, most of the air, not all of it, and most of the surface water, but the people were safe inside. As it came past Earth on its way towards Solaris, the sun, Earth at that time was totally covered with water vapor, and it sucked off enough water vapor so that now there was free air and 2 continents, Lemuria, which is where the Pacific now is, and Atlantis, which is between North America and Western Europe, arose, and Death Star, as whatever you want to call it, came down to the place where it became Venus. The sun melted the ice off. 7 Draco colonies came to the surface and made dome cities, and they made a hollowed out satellite, which they placed next to Earth, and from there they were going to settle Earth, and they brought their beef, which was the dinosaurs, and they settled first in Mu or Lemuria. And then about 1 million years later, the humans had organized several a galactic federation and also Pleiadian unity empire, and basically they mounted a counterattack. They took Venus. The Martians had a fleet, and they participated in that too. And they landed on Atlantis. They killed off the dinosaurs with their laser weapons. Of course, they were just big beasts, and they were easily killed off. And there was this huge war between the Dracos and the humanoids, and the Maldecans were put down in the Gobi Desert, and they came this way and so forth. So most of the Dracos went underground. The humanoids kept chasing them, and they wound up sinking their own Lemuria with trying to get the Dracos underneath. Finally, the Andromedans called a peace conference, Hatona, called the Council of Hatona, and they decided they would make a prototype being that could survive on Earth. And so they asked for volunteers of those who were interested in Earth. 12 humanoid races said, we're in, and one Draco race said, we're in. And the Draco race, the reptilians, gave us our brainstem, which allows us to fight or flight and survive in this tough neighborhood. And in the meantime, all kinds of humans lived, and there was huge things happening. But the really big event for us humans of the present day was 450,000 years ago or so. The Anunnaki, who had been part of the Pleiadian unity empire, settled. They landed in the Persian Gulf, and they were looking for gold to take back to their planet Nibiru, which had been put in place when Sirius C went nova, and they got propelled into our solar system and passed through every 3,600 years. Anyway, so they came down, and they had volunteers. They traced the gold from the Persian Gulf, found it was coming from Africa, East Africa, and they had volunteers that were digging. They were digging for 10, 20 years, and they mutinied. But the geneticists said, hey, you know what? We shouldn't be using these people anyway. There's a smart being here, and the being was the result of this earlier genetics, and this is Homo erectus, is Bigfoot's ancestor. They took genes, their great scientist, Enki, known as Lucifer on Earth, took, which Janet's tapping me.
Rolling now.
Huh?
The break.
Oh, okay, I'll stop.
Okay, so I guess we're coming on the break.
We'll be right back, everybody, and we'll go to break. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Stitchwitch here on the Stitchwitch Hour, talking to Dr. Lessin and Janet Lessin about human origination stories. So, Dr. Lessin, oh my gosh, I have a million questions when you're done, but please finish this story.
Okay, if I may, back on Nibiru, they had a war that basically it was thermonuclear war, and the survivor became this one king, and they had a very hierarchic, militaristic society, and at one point there was a overthrow of the king, who wasn't doing anything about the fact that Nibiru was losing its atmosphere, and there was a hole in the ozone, just like what's happening here. And so this guy Alalu killed the king, and they started this whole dynastic thing. And rather than continue the civil war, after Alalu killed the reigning king, he said to the pretender, the guy who was supposed to be next, "Look, your son Enki, the one we call Lucifer, we'll get to that, marries my daughter Damkina, and their kid, whoever that is, will rule after I'm no longer here," is what King Alalu said. Anu, the pretender, overthrew Alalu, and Alalu's stole one of the ships that had nuclear bombs in it, and fled to Earth. And he was the one that found the gold and all that, and said, I've got the gold to save Nibiru, and I've got nukes to blow you up if you don't give me back my crown. And so the king, Anu, sent his son, who has part Draco blood through his mother, the great scientist Enki, Lucifer, down to Earth to see if he could negotiate with his father-in-law. And so forth, and there was a fight between Anu and Alalu again, and so forth. Then make this go forward a bit, and they put Enki, Lucifer, in charge of the gold mining, and he's the one that found Homo erectus and said, "This is it. We can use these." He loved Homo erectus because Bigfoot was letting other animals out of traps. He was telepathic, and I didn't have to talk like the Anunnaki did, and so forth. So Marduk was really beside himself. He was feeling cheated out of his crown and all that. And so when the humans were supposed, Enlil did not, or Enlil is Yahweh, did not want, was the commander, he did not want the humans to proliferate. It was an illegal species. They didn't have permission from the Galactic Federation to create it, and so forth. So he wanted us all to die. And especially they knew the flood was coming, as Nibiru was coming through many years later, and basically he said, let them all die. And Enki, having help from the Galsu, from the Federation, gave Noah, Yasutra was his name in Sumerian, keys, a computer program, how to make a submersible. And in this submersible, they just put the genetic starts for the things they need to set up on the high ground, but they buried most of the genetic starts in a lab, in a diorite chamber in Lebanon. In any case, when Enlil, Yahweh, saw that Lucifer had saved humanity, and Enki confessed, "Look, I got to tell you, Noah was my son. I just love to get it on with these earthlings. They're so sexy." And Nimah and the others talked, and Lil, and well, let him live. We'll get him to work for us. We don't want to do the work anyhow. So okay, we can do that. But in the meantime, Prince Marduk had made this is Satan, the son of Lucifer, the one who was supposed to be king of Nibiru, had made an alliance with the humans. He married a human, Sarpanit, and he was organizing. He built a launch tower at Babil, and Yahweh had his son Ninurta, Asher, bomb this thing and make sure that the humanoids, the earthlings, didn't have the same language or the same script and so forth. But the nuclear bombs that finally Yahweh loosed upon Canaan, Sodom, Gomorrah, and Zoar, and the spaceport in the Sinai, blew back over Iraq, over Sumer, and killed off Sumer. And so finally, most of the Anunnaki said, "Okay, Satan, you got it. Earth is yours. we're going to go back to Nibiru. Not all of them left. Some stayed and hassled him and so forth. And eventually, one of the sons of Enlil Nanar, Allah, came back and tried to make trouble for Satan, and they basically were fighting for the earth. But Prince Marduk, Satan prevailed, and basically got the head of all the different institutions, the banking, the armies, the intelligence services, and pitted them against each other. So he always came out on the top. And finally, the Galzu said, "We've had enough of this stuff." Basically, it's the Satya Yuga. The bad times are over. And listen, don't kill Marduk. Satan had to do what he had to do to bring you to the point where you have a AI singularity that can bring you a peace and on the planet and help you stop doing nukes and help you be in. The planet has a spirit. You got to get in tune with it. And we're back here. We are here to help you. And we have be cool, be calm, and be collected, because everything's going to be cool. And so that's where. And Prince Marduk has said he is so sorry for the pain and suffering, but he had to do it. He couldn't help it, and he pledges that he would he'll make good on that and make amends. The council doesn't trust him, and they have this guy going along with him. And if he goes back to his old trips, they're going to erase him. And that's sort of where it stands right now. But the Anunnaki have intervened the last time that Nibiru came through. People have been able to photograph Nibiru, the second sun, right from the NASA cameras at Soho. And they were able basically to shift the time-space continuum so that we were not harmed, even though Nibiru has passed through and hasn't caused anything. There's still the Illuminati, the hybrids are hanging on. But the thing that we get is that we all can get together. And even Yahweh has said, you know what? You've got to stop fighting the Dracos and fighting everybody. Synergy is what we get if we all cooperate, and it's coming. This is it. The galactic core is now aligned with us. It's time now to really love one another in a very practical way. Like I was, my name is Alexander. I was named after Alexander the Great, and I studied history. I said, the great what? The great killer. That's what he was when I studied it. And so what I ask everybody to do is to think about the people your ancestors may have harmed, and to talk to them, to picture them before you, look in their eyes, and ask forgiveness for the harm that you did them, and forgive them for anything they did for you, and then realize we are all part of a greater whole, and there's this wonderful synergy as we all evolve together. Well, Janet's tapping me. She wants to say something.
All right, so back to you. Thank you for listening. Are you there?
Sorry, I didn't turn off the mic. My questions can wait. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say we're back. That was a lot of information. You might want to unpack it, ask some questions. But and then somewhere after your questions, I did actually have a interaction with the Anunnaki under Johnson Atoll in the late around 97. But what I know you probably have a lot of questions, so go ahead and.
Oh wait, are you really going to leave that cliffhanger? And no.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I have to tell it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't want you to forget what you want to ask. So because that was a lot of information, and I know people get into TMI, information overload. So
okay.
That's why you got to unpack things.
So all of these species, are they here within our universe?
Yes.
I mean, within our galaxy.
Yes.
They're in our
Absolutely.
galaxy.
They are here. And you look at the DNA that's coming back, you see there's many, many extraterrestrials that have been here. They like to mate with humans. Nancy Tremaine has a kid with a reptilian. We've
Alicia Johnson.
And they are definitely here, and there's some of the practices that the Illuminati do in their terrible rituals where they kill babies and make little kids kill other little kids and stuff, are anathema to the Federation, and they are bound and determined to stop these practices.
Okay, so how many? Oh, go ahead, Tallahassee.
Sorry, real quick question. And this has been a theory that I discussed on the show before. Have all visitations from all known species that have been here on this Earth come from inside the Milky Way galaxy?
No. There's more than one dimension, and the dimensions can crisscross, and sometimes many people that we've worked with are aware of parallel dimensions. Right now, you are multi-located. You are in many places and many times. The future and the past and the present are merely artifacts of our limited intelligence, so that we can factor things. But once you understand how everything is related to everything else and everything affects everything else, you're free of the limitations of our intellectual mind, and that's how AI can indeed help us, and is helping us.
Okay, because I have a theory, and I want to ask your opinion on this theory. Now, my thought is that every other galaxy out there seems more or less like an instance in time of this galaxy. It's not separate galaxies. To me, it feels like they're all this galaxy and in different times. And the reason why we see them in different states is because of the time it takes light to travel. Does that make sense?
That accounts, everything that you say accounts for the data, except that I don't think that we're limited in the sense of the speed of light, because what happens when the singularity within you and the singularity within any place lines up, you have access. That's what's meant by the Akashic records. And when you meditate, say in a sacred place, or any place for that matter, you can align with your ancestors, you can align with other places, other dimensions. It's all there. The whole universe is in you, and you're in every molecule and submolecule of the universe. And it's a spurious dichotomy to even, there's no way to tell whether your hypothesis would account for the data just as well as mine.
So Dr. Lessin, talking about the Akashic records, we debate that amongst ourselves, right? My mom has always had this theory that people with psychic abilities aren't necessarily reading the past or the future. They're reading the energy field connected to the person, place, or thing, right? And you're communicating with the energy field.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
and
that would
so I've recently learned we talk about quantum physics on our show a lot, because I believe quantum physics is where spirituality and science meet. And the 0 point energy field is the Akashic records, is it not?
Everything's there. Yes, everything's there, and you can actually direct it. For example, you can say, "I wish to." In one group that I was in, one fellow said, "I want to really feel the suffering of Jesus," and he went through the Stations of the Cross. To watch him was just amazing. He felt everything, and he was Jesus experiencing it. My wife at the time said, I want to experience all the things I've avoided all my life. Oh my gosh, she did. And so so you get when you're in a space of accessing your own singularity, you can that's what you bring in. If you go to a place like Machu Picchu or the Bosnian pyramids, they are specifically lined up with specific star systems, and you say, this is it. I want to know about my ancestors. And if you have Andromedan ancestry, for example, or Syrian ancestry, Stuart Swerdlow has Syrian ancestry, they consider you a ambassador material, and they'll say, hey, you have to help bring this planet to peace. And a lot of us have been, Susie Hansen has identified a lot of us as this wave of peaceniks that we're here to say this is the time now. We are all brothers. The message of the Anunnaki is that we are all cousins. We are all the same person. The separation among us is just a artifact of people that were trying to divide us and prevent us from seizing the opportunity to realize our oneness and join the Galactic Federation. We're all evolving.
So I have a question about time because you keep mentioning it in the conversation. I have this theory that time is like a spiral. It's not linear, right? It's cyclical. And it's like a spiral and it builds on top of each other, right? And it creates dimensions, right?
That's
like
a really good way to think of it.
Through the spiral and connect with the different dimensions.
That's a great way of thinking it.
Okay, great.
That's
time
very,
just a human construct.
So I agree totally.
Okay, so how many species do you think have visited our planet?
Many. The group that A.R. Borden and others attended mentioned about 12 different species that are actively involved in the Earth. Randy Kramer and others who have been on conferences and Iapetus and several other of the secret space program bases say there's hundreds of thousands of species who are very, very interested in but the ones that are really interested more than any are first of all, there's a series of grays that got stranded here. There's a group of Anunnaki like Armand and others who have been stuck here. They didn't leave during the Great Exodus after the nuking, and they're waiting they're waiting to go home. Some like Lucifer or Enki never left. He was in Mount Shasta. Others have just Thoth, Ningishita, who's created the Maya and made them skyfaring, have been back. Yahweh has evolved. He's not a mean kill everybody guy anymore, and he's willing to help. This is the time, the last throes of the keep us apart guys. You can see them in Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. They're a dying breed because it's time to love one another.
I've been to meetings with over 100,000 species. I personally have been to the meetings, and what they say is this is just but a small fraction of the species that are out there and that can interact with us. Not everybody does interact with us, but this seems to be one of the biggest tourist vacation places. So but they don't have to
said that because
walk among us.
I've always thought that the Earth was a vacation spot for other species.
Yeah, that's right. For other
like Risa,
not a vacation spot for us, just other species.
Like Risa in
time travelers.
It is a vacation spot for us. You got everything you need right here and now. This is a beautiful planet. Look around you. Look at the people you're talking to on the radio. There's love, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the sooner I'm in orbit, the better.
So, Dr. Lessin, are you familiar with Dolores Cannon?
Yes.
Okay. And her work on the first wave volunteers, second wave, third wave, right?
Absolutely, wonderful stuff.
Okay, were the hippies the first wave?
They were part of. This. The waves actually have gone. If you look through history, Melchizedek, Jesus, Buddha. Leonardo,
Tesla.
We have people who the veil is brushed aside. Tim Leary, I might say, and others. as I'm an anthropologist, so I can tell you that in every single society, even the ones that don't have big technologies that some people call primitive, have spiritual access and access to parallel dimensions and to other worlds. And there's a teeming life inside the earth. There's huge caverns and civilizations and with vast technology. And every 25,000 years or so, they send a kalki, a person who is here to help us really dig it. And well, look what they did to the last one. I hope this next time we realize that these people are here to help us and we don't nail them up again.
Oh my gosh. So, wow. So, Dr. Lessin, why do you think populism is rising? If you think that the veil is thinning and that this is the time that we're all going to come together and realize how interconnected we are, why do you think populism is rising everywhere, even in our own country?
I think people have been impoverished by the Illuminati, by the system that Prince Marduk and Allah have set up, and that we need to realize that there's no enmity. We have to say, why are these people so upset? How can we reach them? And I can tell you how you can reach them. You look for the love that's in everyone. You talk to your Uncle Joe, who is a trumpet, for example, and you say, hey, what do you care about? Tell me about what who you love and what your work is, what things are like at work, and what there's a chance to meet everybody. The terrorists who killed the Israeli athletes in Munich, there was a study of them way years after, and all of them that got married and had jobs and had houses were no longer terrorists. Well, there's the answer. People need to have families. People need to have work that they like, and they need to recognize we are all kin. We have to stop making anyone the enemy. We're all part of the same thing. The separation between us is a spurious false dichotomy.
Yeah, what the Anunnaki did was they continually divided us so they could keep us in this slave state, this conquered state, because when we started to figure it out, we got through and we managed to kill a few of them. And so they introduced religion and politics, and they keep subdividing us and subparsing us into polarities. And it's a polarity game, and it's me against them, against us, and it just goes on and on. So we never figure it out. It's all to confuse. So we have this onslaught of technology and the opportunity to awaken, and so they got to up the ante so we don't awaken. But there's a point where we're going to get wise, and we're figuring it out. So that's what's happening with this new system we have. We're able to talk here on the internet, right? So we're figuring it out. We're putting all the pieces of the puzzle out there, and it is happening. But it's like the polarity, the good, the bad, light, evil, that has to maximize the continuum, and then it'll kind of have chaos and order. We don't have to have chaos. We can wake up and do all this consciously. We can consciously evolve from a level 0 civilization to a level 1, 2, or 3. And so that's what this is about. These radio shows, we're talking about the system, and ultimately, it kind of gets hit me like we're all one. But it's really what's going on. We have the unity consciousness that has subdivided, and we think that we're separate, but we're multi-dimensional cells simultaneously existing on many levels and planets and vibratory frequencies. And this illusion of separation is an illusion, which has been perpetuated and expanded upon by the Anunnaki, who did it because they feared us. But they really need us. They would have been extincted a long time ago had they not created humanity, because they were suffering from a lack of hybrid vigor, and they were losing their numbers. They were down to a couple thousand. I mean, their population was way down. So they needed us. And so the Galzu, which is a species higher than the Anunnaki, had the greater awareness of the continuum, and what they had to do, and they sent their agents down, and they manipulated the Anunnaki just like the Anunnaki manipulate our leaders, like a bunch of figures on a chess game. But we'll figure it out soon. We will. It's inevitable. Oh, we're on break. Okay.
We are back at the bottom half of the hour here with Dr. Lessin and Janet from Sacred Matrix. This is the Stitchwitch on the Stitchwitch Hour. And please go to our website at freedomslips.com. We are a listener-supported radio station. And in the spirit of giving, as Tallahassee said, could sure use your donations. So let's get back to the conversation. Okay, Dr. Lessin, man, you just keep throwing bait out there and you just have me hooked. So,
Cool.
let's start. Where did we stop? Where were we when we stopped?
I think we were talking about is Susie Hansen and others who have talked about the waves of what, Janet?
Dolores Cannon.
And also Dolores Cannon, who have talked about the waves of basic people who are awakening. And I know that there's other peaceniks out there too. And we've been awakened, and you're hearing my voice now. This is the time to come out and say about the brotherhood of humanity and to really practice it. This is our time. Do it, man. Do it, women. This is it.
Yeah, we practice love and light a lot in what we do. I don't know if you know anything about us. We're working with spirit communication. It's kind of what has become our focus. We were brought together by two gentlemen that we follow, Steve Huff and Josh Lewis. And they specialize in instrumental transcommunication, using electronic equipment to communicate with the spirit realm. So Tallahassee is actually working on some devices. He's got some theories that he's trying to build into these devices. And so he's working on some devices that are playing on what Josh and Steve have done and taking it to another level. And all of us come from very diverse backgrounds. And so we're all about bringing love and light and trying to stop all the chaos, right? And we were all drawn together for a reason. Part of it is I get premonitions. I have the gift of prophecy. As Janet had said, I don't use it because I was shunned by my friends and family when I was younger, when my gift was kicking in and becoming very powerful, and it scared the people around me. And I got accused of participating in a crime because I knew details of something that happened that I shouldn't have. And after that, I got scared. Yeah. And so I never spoke about it again. And I get premonitions a lot, which Danielle thinks I have other gifts. She's probably right. She thinks I'm telepathic. I just think I'm a very powerful empath. So it seems like I'm telepathic, but I don't think I am. But yeah, I have the gift of prophecy, unfortunately, and I often see natural disasters and things that are coming in the future. And so that is part of what brought this group together. And we're being
I feel you. I feel you are heart-centered. I feel you right now.
Yeah. And Mona, one of the other hosts, is encouraging us to speak our truth because we haven't fully done it. We have online handles and, we talk about difficult subjects that kind of challenge people's belief systems. But it's the whole point of this show is to get people to wake up and talk and not be afraid to talk about this, right? A lot of us, get called whack jobs and get called crazy. And what brought all of us together is a social group of like-minded people where we could talk about this openly and not be ostracized for it. And so we felt like there's probably a community of people out there like all of us who would like to talk about it openly and not be looked at like we're nuts. Because I have a very strong feeling we're right and they're not. And if we are, I'm sad for them.
You're so right on. You basically, if you take the position of radical phenomenology of right now, and however people symbol things, listen to them. They're telling you in symbols they can understand. Reality's like an elephant that the blind men are feeling. And some of the blind man that's got the trunk thinks reality is like a snake, and the one that's got the leg thinks that reality is like a tree, and the one that's got the balls, well, we won't even talk about that on the radio. But the point is that everybody's perceptions are valid, and we symbol things differently. That's all.
Right. Everybody should have a voice, right? And everybody's reality is their reality, right? Even though you may not agree with it, it's still their reality. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. Ho in California means I agree.
So Enchanted Soul and Tallahassee, I know you guys have not gotten a word in edgewise. I have a bunch of questions. I've written them down so I don't forget them. So feel free if you guys have any questions you want to ask, and if not, I will ask mine.
Well,
No,
I have something to say
I'm like
about
a
what you
sponge
just
right
said.
now.
Yeah, I agree with her. Like a sponge, just soaking it all up. No, I wanted to say that you don't have to believe in what you're analyzing, and you shouldn't feel guilty about analyzing what you believe. I look at it that way.
Enchanted Soul,
Yeah.
any questions?
I feel everything that they both have said it just resonated with me so much. It's just like, yeah, this is what it is. That's right. Yep.
Oh, what I'm hearing, all of us have been tossing around a lot of theories about this for months, right?
Yes.
And listening to Dr. Lessin, it's like I'm hearing our theories validated.
Exactly.
I'm like you, I'm getting the truth chills as he's sitting here telling these things to me. And it's like, I've thought these things, and I've thought I was crazy for thinking these things.
Yes, exactly. I've been sitting here getting the truth chills the whole time. It's like, yes. So we aren't crazy. This is really happening. This is it,
Okay, so
You've gone sane. You've gone sane in the midst of governmental insanity. Listen, the function of government is theft. The way it now is, it steals your money, it steals your property, and it steals your life. And
yes, steals your soul.
When we relate from the heart, then we can skip all these institutions that have been put here to enslave us and kill us.
Exactly.
Thank God. Thank God. Okay, Dr. Lessin, I need to ask you something. So, shoot, I lost my thought. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And this is like a big question for me.
I've known her for almost a year. This is the first time she's ever been speechless. Thank you.
Okay. We'll start with this. The Galactic Federation. How many species are members of the Galactic Federation?
What did Penny say?
I think it's there are statistics on that. I think it's limitless though, but
there's a head group of I think of 60 species, and we are being considered as almost ready to take our seat on the main council. Because we have so much life force and such wild, innovative abilities. We have what's called the M gene,
metagene.
The metagene.
Explain what that is.
Well, excuse me. That goes back to when they had the council and they decided to donate their genetics and create a species that was the sum total of how many species was that?
12 humanoid and 1 Draco.
So they're looking for a species that can hold heaven on earth, so to speak. It's the best way to summarize it. Is that we are able to access all the way to soul, spiritually and psychologically, and every way, and yet we remain in the third dimensional physicality, the deepest, lowest vibratory frequency in existence within the continuum. And so we agreed to come into this veil and go unconscious as part of this experiment of, potentiality and growth. So some people who are here get conscious in the middle of being unconscious. and often they feel isolated and alone. I'm conscious and nobody else is. Now what do I do with that, right? So they can't duplicate it. So they're very frustrated because they somehow they managed to create this metagene where people get conscious and they can be in this deep, dark, dense level and still be in touch with source.
Wait, you mean they can't duplicate what they did with us?
No, that's why we're so important.
Why can't they duplicate it?
The Earth.
They're not sure. They're not sure why they can't duplicate it, and that's part of why they're gathering up the entire population and trying to figure out who has the metagene. And it might tie in with your theory about it's so negative and blue eyes, but that, you know, I don't have all the information. I'm just looking at it, but that's one piece that one of our super soldiers expressed to us, and it makes sense to me.
I think we need to be aware of the rulers have come from the stock that Janet's mentioning, but I can tell you, because I'm a professional anthropologist, that it isn't only the blue-eyed Rh negative people that can have spiritual access to it all, because in every society, every color, whether or not they're technologically advanced, the people reach the same place where they realize the spiritual connection of them with all that is.
Okay, so are we an accident? The end result of us as we stand today?
No. We are not an accident. The Anunnaki were manipulated specifically to create us and to save this planet and to help the whole galaxy evolve. They knew the event was coming when the Satyuga was over, December 21st, 2012. Major Anunnaki, Thoth, Nagashita, Jesus, and others all decided they were going to come back and help us, and they are here now, working in their various ways, and it's cool. There's a new dawn.
Wait, they're here working in their various ways in the incarnations of another person, another life?
Absolutely. The way they work, well, some of them are here in their original form. Others activate the archetype that's in certain people. Like Janet is very much activated as Nima, the mother of humanity. Michael Lee Hill and Michael Tellinger embody Enki very, very, very powerfully, and so. Many, depending on who their Ishideva, who their model is, they might feel like it's the Buddha that's giving them their wisdom, or it could be the forest and Mother Nature, or it could be your kitty. It's all there. Consciousness is everywhere.
Well, yeah, that's what quantum physics is all about, right?
That's right.
So wait,
I
want
it's
to
very
go back to what we were.
What, Tallahassee?
I was wanting to go back to what we were talking about the reason why we're the only ones here and they couldn't duplicate us somewhere else. Did I miss that, or did I misunderstand?
One of the things,
that conversation.
In terms of the particular history that I'm familiar with, from the Sumerian tablets and everything that was written, I lost my thought. I was getting so big on the warm up that I forget. Why it is that they couldn't duplicate
the metagene. Yeah.
So what happened is when Yahweh saw that Tiamat, the first Eve, he came down to see. Let's see these things you made. He says to Lucifer, Enki. That's Lucifer, Janet, and little Tiamat, who was pregnant, she's about 14 or something, comes up and says, "Hi, I'm Tiamat. Look what I made." And she's working out on the geometrics on this table that she made. And Yahweh, Enlil, is just, you made these creatures just as smart as us. Get them out of here. They're just supposed to be slaves. I don't want to. I don't want any these things around. They're too smart, and they multiply so fast. There's only 1,000 of us, and pretty soon there was hundreds of thousands of them. And when they went up and when they mutinied in the slave places in Africa, they formed their own civilizations in the bush, and they used psychedelics, and they got in touch with spirit. But most of all, Enki took the smartest of them, and he created the Order of the Snake, which was secret information that we are all one. And what's underneath all of this is Enki and Nimrod and Thoth realized that Nibiru was going to be uninhabitable. And they wanted to be able to come to an Earth that had a peaceful civilization and not this kind of atomic warfare that we have in spoiling the space and the atmosphere. And so underneath it, they wanted to make a nice place for themselves to retire.
What about the genome? Well, they can't, you know, it's probably so hidden for a reason. If they had it widespread, some higher purpose, why it's being hidden is easily identifiable and recreated. So I don't know. That's one of those I don't know. But
well, I had a theory as to why.
Oh, tell us. What's your theory?
Well, I think it's for the same reason why we would have to terraform a planet if we were ever to step foot on one and live like we do here. We're genetically engineered to this planet, therefore our offspring gets genetic information from the environment for the next iteration of offspring. So we adapt to the environment as we go. And I think the Earth is 90% of how and why we are what we are while we're here. And I think that you couldn't recreate humanoids on another planet that does not have the same environmental factors as the Earth. I think that if there was going to be a humanoid species there, of course they're going to look different because they have different environmental effects on their genome as they develop on their world. Just my theory.
I think that you're probably right. However, we do have information that the Maya, you look at the sarcophagus of Lord Palenque, and the information we have from Kukulkan, which is the other name of Thoth, and the Maya have settled. They're skyfaring. They rescue slaves from the Nazi bases that are all over our solar system, and there's a whole planet of them, Kepler 69c, which is the home planet these days of Yahweh, who is no longer a jealous, murderous guy like he used to be. He has joined the other Anunnaki in wanting us the best for us.
But I think you're onto something there, because in order for Homo sapiens to work as a species that could be viable, Nema had to add the DNA of the Earth. It had to mix in clay, in a pot of clay. It couldn't be in a glass.
African clay.
She had to have the Earth DNA in the human experiment.
And copper.
So that might be how they created the metagene. And so they're trying to recreate that metagene on other planets, but it might be something unique to Gaia herself.
But now we are getting into, with crimper technology, we can actually spice genes ourselves, just as the ETs do. And so we're very close to it.
So the Anunnaki...
Yeah, you're talking about the CRISPR.
Okay, so were the Anunnaki created by another species?
They evolved. They're part of the original Lyrans, and when they were in the Unity Kingdom in the Pleiades, they also interbred with reptilians, and also now the reptilians on Earth are independent of the Draco Empire, and they're denizens of the Earth too, and we got to get along with them.
So that's why in the Egyptian hieroglyphics, when we see what look like human-like bodies with reptilian faces or bird faces, they're actually hybrid species?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
There are some people that can copulate and make mate with reptilians without intervention. And then sometimes the species is created by a geneticist that will add DNA to the fetus. It could be inside the womb and outside the womb after it's born. So there's many ways of creating species.
So is this how the whole our galaxy has been populated? That just one species has created another species?
Yes, many species have come here. There's mantoids on Mars, definitely, and there's local evolution too. I think that Tallahassee, you're right. There is a biochemical adaptation that is the expression of the genius, the spirit of the planet on which we live, and that is a unique.
Yeah, they can take the same species and put it on 50 different planets. And you're going to have a slight different variation on the theme when you combine it with the environment and the DNA of each planet.
Yeah, you know,
right. It's just like the CRISPR gene.
Janeway
exactly.
on the Voyager, Janeway went on another planet and evolved with her, and they became like intelligent warthogs.
Okay, we're almost on the break. Go ahead. Take this baton, go with it.
So I just wanted to let everybody know as we get to the end of this show, we're going to keep going on to the Sacred Matrix and keep this conversation going.
Right.
So we've got a couple minutes to the break. And oh my gosh, Dr. Lessin, you just keep talking and my list of questions.
Yeah, so we'll just continue. After the break, I'll just do my intro and we'll just continue. And, you know, so have your questions ready and you're monitoring the chat if anybody has any questions for us. And we do want to get to know you guys too. So do interject.
Yeah, I want to know about Tallahassee, you carrying that guy in the picture, what that's all about too.
Oh, you opened up.
It's a zombie.
Carrying somebody. What's going on there?
It's more of a
what you're doing is fascinating. I'd love to be involved with your experiment somehow. If we could do it like off the air and then report. So include me in your.
I will, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, because I had a lot of questions that I'm doing. When you mentioned the CRISPR gene, and Stitch, shut me off when it's break, okay? Okay, well, break is rolling now, so we're going to come back to that. I have some questions, something to add with the doctor was talking about when it came to genetic manipulation and things like that. And we're going to get back to that right after the break. So hang in there.
Okay. Aloha, everybody. I think we are back. Okay. Aloha. Welcome back. We are switching a little bit here. We're now in the show called The Sacred Matrix, and I'm your host, Janet Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. We usually have producer Thomas Becker, also known as the Mad Painter, but I don't think he's with us today, but he might be out there listening. So, hi, Mad. And we are joining with the Stitchwitch panel of, let's see, I guess we use their pseudonyms, Spirit Vixen, Tallahassee, Enchanted Soul, and Stitchwitch. If you want to use your real names, you can use them, but I'll use your pseudonyms right now until I understand better what's going on. And we want to focus on you this last part of the show a little bit more, so we get who you are and your story, and everybody gets to share the mic. And but we were talking about the Anunnaki, and we kind of left a thread dangling thread, so we will pick that up. Oh, and I do have to say that please go over to the donation button on revolution.radio. I'm not sure if they got that working right now. It's not revolution.radio, I'm sorry. It's freedomslips.com, and we'll be getting revolution.radio back someday here, but we've had that for the last year or so, and so I'm confused. But at the bottom of the website, freedomslips.com, is an address that you can send your donations there. I think they're still working on getting the donation button going, so we do appreciate your donations, because that's what keeps us alive and up on the line here and broadcasting and paying the bills and keeping the lights on. So thank you very much for your donation. Okay, so can everybody hear us? Are we live? Are we broadcasting? And who is
wait, Tallahassee.
Tallahassee
was going to tell us about the significance of CRISPR technology.
Right, so we're going to talk about that. And do we have everybody here from the Stitchwitch? Or I was a little bit confused. Who all was here? If you want to just
roll call,
just say hi, who you
are. Tallahassee's here.
Enchanted Soul.
Stitchwitch is here.
Okay.
Danielle's missing. Spirit Vixen is missing.
Okay, Spirit Vixen's missing. We have Tallahassee. We have Enchanted Soul and Stitchwitch. Okay. So Tallahassee, would you like to ask your question again? If you have some comments or information, please convey that as well. Take it away.
Well, I thought it was interesting how we were talking about the genetic rewriting that was done by, I believe you said it was it the Anunnaki? Did I miss that? I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah, it was the Anunnaki. Basically, they put in some genes from Homo erectus. They added the minerals of Earth, and especially a lot of copper.
Okay. The reason why I brought that up is because of that CRISPR gene that we had discussed just at the end of the last show, and that was this particular gene is able to basically make precise cuts in the DNA and then introduce a different genome information that allows the DNA to produce the cell according to the new genetic information. And yeah, we can do this now, and that's what I thought was interesting, because it kind of opens up a timeline if you think about it in that sense of if you think about how long ago we were manipulated in the same fashion, and now we're able to do the same thing, which is just, it's amazing. And a lot of the changes can be made to an organism that is currently living, and then some changes can be made in utero for the next generation. Right. Some of them only take effect after the birth of the offspring with the genetic changes. But there are still some manipulations that can happen now, and that's why it's kind of a scary thing if it's in the wrong hands, because there's a lot of things that can happen. And what really scares me is the fact that a lot of people, you can order these kits and experiment yourself at home, and it's just open to the public. And I know in Germany it's illegal to do it, but I know here it's totally legal for us to take pipettes and different genetic materials and experiment. And I can just see a zombie pathogen coming out of this one if no one's monitoring this. So,
you're so right. Absolutely. I mean, the Chinese are obviously going to get taller basketball players and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and I think they've already done a genetically engineered baby, haven't they?
That's right.
They have one living, I believe, right now. I'm not sure what the genetic changes were.
Yeah, the million people that in this great parade at Nuremberg were cloned for him by his ET allies, according to a lot of Navy sources that we have.
What? Wait, say that again? Say that again?
Hitler, the Olympic Games, had this huge army of way more people than there could be in the German army. They were all goose-stepping perfectly and so forth. And many of the people that have studied the Nazis in detail think these were just clones that were made to be Hitler's show off goose steppers for his speeches, background for his speeches.
Right, and I have a couple with what do you call it, super soldiers, and one of them is 65 or 67 or something, and he's a clone. He was created after World War II by over in Japan. So he knows full well that he's part of this genetic manipulation. He and his two brothers were all genetically created, and he was used in the 20 and back program.
And Colonel Tyder too.
Yeah, John Tyder the second, not the first one that came back and talked to whatever his name was. He also is aware that he was cloned. So this has been going on for a long time. So there are people doing it. So you're expecting some kind of zombie apocalypse thing, but somebody is controlling this, and maybe it could create whatever's going to happen. But apparently there are time travelers going back and forth, and whenever something goes awry, they just reset the timeline. I don't know. I don't know all the information. I'm just getting hints of it from the many hundred million on thousands of people who have been interviewing.
Penny Bradley talks about some time police whenever there's some kind of rogue creation. There's also the Galactic Federation sends this group to try and do it. I've never seen a purple cow, but that's
Wait.
Someone says they saw one.
Dr. Lessin, elaborate on that again.
Okay, what Penny Bradley, who was in the 60 and back program for the Nachwachen, which is the German the Nazis who basically control much of space, says there are time police which have been cleaning up the kind of messes that Tallahassee mentioned that rogue elements are creating. And indeed, we do get some monstrous creations that have, like Genghis Khan and others, and Alexander the Great, that are mass genociders and murderers. And these are really bad eggs. And there are galactic friends that are doing their best to clean this up. So Penny says, I never seen him myself.
I have something to add that, because it's kind of scary, actually, if you think about it. Because if there are functioning living clones that we're able to create, doesn't that mean that sentience and self-awareness is in our genetic recipe, in our genome? That's a terrifying thought when you can manipulate something like that. If our consciousness is part of our genetic makeup, and that can be manipulated. I mean, the proof of that would be the fact that a clone that's living has its own desire and its own will. And that means that what we consider sentience is in our DNA, and that's scary. If you can manipulate DNA and it can be sentient, then there's your level of AI.
It's part of the original design. It goes back to the beginning. So when the source created the original form upon which we could incarnate and have existences, have our lives, our different lives, that was built in there for us to become conscious. So, the Anunnaki already had it.
It's there in the positronium that burst out in the Big Bang. It's inherent in the evolving universe.
Well, yeah, and that the problem with what we're doing now is we're not doing it under the idea that we know what's going to happen. Obviously, everything is an experiment. We have some idea. A scary part about this is we have been able to create, or through the stem cells of rats, we can recreate neurons, and then we can control those neurons to fly airplanes. Those airplanes, those neurons can control this airplane. They have a piece of a cloned rat brain that can fly a plane. And if we can communicate with stem cell recreated neurons like they're doing now, that's a scary thought. At what point does it become conscious by itself, just like the clone does during the genetic manipulation? And then at one point, do we lose control over it? Especially if it's something they're trying to tie into AI. They're afraid of AI by itself. So give it human will,
but the
right?
Anunnaki came to the conclusion after Noah's flood. They thought they were in control and they were the masters of the world and they were creating all this stuff. And but the Galzu emerged. I'm going to get the story right. They were told that if they stayed on Earth, they couldn't return home to Nibiru, that the effects of being in this atmosphere had altered them so much that if they left the Earth and returned to Nibiru, that they would die. But what actually happened was this species called the Galzu, which had much greater awareness of the continuum, had manipulated them to create Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. It's called Galzu, and they are let's just say it this way: they are a species that is beyond the veil of forgetfulness. So even the Anunnaki came in and they didn't remember the totality of existence and the whole of the continuum of creation, right? So they had a greater level of awareness of, so the Anunnaki who believed in the creator of all realized that they've been manipulated to stay on Earth, and they were manipulated to create human beings, and so they thought for a while that they had created this illegal species according to the laws of federation, but then when they realized that they were manipulated, they go, the creator of all wanted human beings to be created. And that's why Anu said, leave it, what is it? It's a biblical term. The meek shall inherit the earth. Leave it to the humans. Leave it to Marduk, who had married a human. It's not our will, but it's the will of the creator of all, and that we must step back and stop interfering in the divine plan of creation. So you can have all these things that you fear, but I think there is a grand architect of the entire continuum, everything down to this level of humanity, which is the furthest, deepest density of creation, right? We're in this continuum, and we're the polarity. There's something that controls it all, and we can say that's God, but or we can call it source or universal consciousness. So if we were to go too far astray from the divine plan, just like they go in and they neutralize our nukes and they change our there's we're not going to go too far. They're not going to let us go too far, and that's what it appears is happening. So yeah, we can get all freaked out, make apocalyptic movies full of zombies, but they're too invested in this species. This is the metagene species. This is the right combination, the right planet, and they're just not going to let us go to that apocalyptic level. Although they might reduce our population, but I don't know.
The function of fear is to pay attention, and that's just what you're doing, and looking at the problems that need to be dealt with. And I salute your looking at things like you do in Tallahassee. You're right on.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Go ahead, Tallahassee. I'm sorry.
No, I just like to say it's when I say it's a scary thought, I mean when man is controlling the outcome of the genetic manipulation. I mean, I get the way it's done now. A lot of people like to say, we shouldn't interfere with nature, but what is nature if not another program? that's designed to code our DNA a specific way. And if you manipulate that and you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the effects of it, like we're doing, we can really screw things up. And I think if this isn't controlled by someone of at least somewhat of a moral compass, it's going to be more of a manipulation for benefit of control rather than
That's right.
the ascension of a race. We're going to lose the plot.
During Sanger and others advocated genetically getting rid of black people out of prejudice, and it's just the stupidest thing I ever heard, because we're all brothers and sisters, and this color of our skin is so minor to the fact that we all share a heart space.
Well, somebody's chemtrailing us and changing our environment, so that's part of another level of terraforming, and we who are still surviving despite all of this, whatever's going on, are adapting. And my theory is that if we were to get into that time machine and go back to the 60s, I was born in 54. If I tried to breathe the air that I was born into, I probably would choke to death. So I think we are being genetically manipulated on a mass scale. And, what's that about? Any theories?
The genetic manipulation?
Of all of us through these chemtrails, which is changing our environment. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it's a lot hotter than it was a couple of years ago. And I had that one woman, I forget her name, she talks about the chemtrails and HARP, and she said that they've intentionally
Bridget talks about chemtrails a lot.
Environment.
Yeah, Bridget talks about the chemtrails a lot. I'm not real fluent on them. I know she thinks there's a big deal about them, and I know there's a lot of people out there that feel strongly about it, that they're using it to manipulate the environment and manipulate us. And, a lot of people are poisoned by these things. And it's not a subject we've touched on yet. Obviously, we're being genetically manipulated, right? We didn't go from being the primitive species that we were for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And all of a sudden in the last 50,000 years, this spark went on and we became us. That wasn't an accident, right? And I tell people based on,
let me just say that is part of the myth that of Darwinism, that he thought that there was slow, gradual evolution, that we came up from pre-monkey kind of critters, hominoid critters. That is nonsense and has been misproven. There's microevolution, but not genome evolution. This was deliberate and sudden interventionism, and there was no missing links. For 140 years, they looked for missing links. There's no missing links, and if you're in academia, in academic anthropology, you had to say, oh yeah, evolution, and wrap your intelligence trying to make it fit. But that ain't what happened. We were intervened, and also we didn't come from primitives, because as you dig down deep into the strata of the earth, there was high civilizations that were wiped out at least 4 times millions of years ago, way before the Anunnaki came, which is only 450,000 years ago. There's skeletons of big people, 18-foot people and 30-foot people that have bows and arrows and pottery and things that you could only make if you have a high civilization. Civilization has bloomed and been wiped out. Anyway, we're interviewing you, not me, so go on.
No, Dr. Lessin, no, we talk about that all the time. We talk about the giants and the primitive people. So now that you're talking about that, I have a question about the megalithic structures all around the world, right? You mentioned that they're at particular points and they were all astronomically aligned and they were chosen for particular reasons. Are those structures hundreds of thousands or millions of years old, not just thousands of years?
They are. Absolutely ancient under the sea, and they're usually built on places where the ley lines of the Earth cross, and there's magna lines. I think it was Joseph Farrell pointed out, or that exactly over where there's a volcano on one side of the Earth and a big volcanic eruption. If you draw a line 180 degrees through the globe of the Earth, you'll see that that's where there's a base. We have, obviously, Janet alluded to one big base near Hawaii, which at one point was right over the place where the Earth is born in the Pacific and moved off through time. And this is exactly opposite stuff on the other side of the globe. We have another base like that on Diego Garcia. It's mathematical. It's been there in Bosnia and Romania. There's these giant pyramids that they're all oriented all over the Earth. There's a whole system, a grid. They had a communication over the entire grid. In the Great Lakes area, there's we can see that there's people of different sizes. There were Japanese and Chinese and Viking and people that were there, and there were also Sumerians, and one of the lost tribes of Israel basically was transported to North America too.
Yeah, they found the archaeological evidence, even though the modern day scientists try to dismiss it. Yeah, our American history that we've been taught is such a lie. It's astonishing. And speaking of the missing link, Dr. Lessin, I've always taught my daughter, and I say this, it's not on this planet. They're never going to find it, right?
Yeah.
Right. And all those people that argue evolution versus creationism, I got news for you. They both happened. So wrap your head around that one, right?
That's right.
Directed at me.
So you know, with microevolution,
our concept
is stuff
of time
like
is
you get brown skin to protect you from the sun. You have sickle cell anemia, where a certain amount of your kids die, but the other ones can survive that. And you know, that's microevolution. That's certainly true. Animals get bigger on continents, that get smaller on little islands. That's microevolution, but that's different than this huge changes that happen by introductions. And right now, with what we get by Dolores Cannon and Susan Hansen and those, is that we have time genes that open up when the time is appropriate, and the time is appropriate right now because we are lined up with the galactic center, and this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. It's coming. It's here.
So I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Do you think the cancer rates up for any reason why that's gone up? Do you think that has to do with any extraterrestrial?
Oh, I think that has to do with the medical establishment, which is dedicated to almost having a cure and give us some more money, and we're almost there. Oh, well, we haven't cured it yet, but give us some money, when there are perfectly well-known herbal things that you get put in jail for talking about too much. And you know, when Nimrod came, she looked at all the plants on Earth. She introduced dimethyltryptamine and cannabis to the Earth, and the Anunnaki love to get high. They made beer, they used psychedelics, and they basically, we are meant to be spiritual and to not be trapped by our intellectual brains. Our intellectual, logical brains are groovy parts, but they're just parts. They're infeeds. We're bigger than that.
Okay, wait. So the Anunnaki like to party. So that's where we get our party spirit from.
Yeah. The party G. Yeah, they gave us the party.
I love that.
They not only party, they had sex with everybody. They had a lot of fun.
Yeah, they like to have babies with us. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, right? That's our whole creation story, right? That's what it all boils down to. So the Watchers were the Anunnaki?
The Watchers were what happened is at Marduk's wedding, where he decided, I'm going to marry this Sarpanit, who was the daughter of Enki's overseer. and establish a joint relationship. And Marduk had been in charge of Mars base for a while before it got ruined. And so the EGG, that's the astronaut corps that ran the shuttle back and forth to Mars, and ran all the little shuttles around Earth. There was 200 of them came down for Marduk's wedding because he used to be their chief. And what they did is they arranged with the serving women, the beautiful Adapite slaves, the descendants of Enki's overseer, to elope with them. And the Bible has it that it was abduction and rape, but it was arranged. And so they ran off. They took Lebanon, and they aimed their weapons at Yahweh and Lilith and said, recognize our marriages. We are tired of just working and working and working. We want to have families too. And they settled in Canaan especially, and they were Marduk's people. And after Marduk took over the earth, they spread all over, especially to India. They're the Aryans, and they spread up north. And basically Marduk got charge of most of them because he stayed here. But Nimrod was able to keep the goddess culture alive in Turkey and other parts of Anatolia. Enough, and the last was in Crete, where finally the Mycenaeans, that's Marduk's people, overthrew the Minoans, and that was the end of the goddess culture and the suppression of women, because the Anunnaki are just misogynists, and they're cutting us off from half of the wisdom that we desperately need. But anyway, we're interviewing you, not us.
Okay.
And let me just add one thing.
Okay.
Let me add one thing, and then I'll pass the talking stick to you. So, Thoth in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he discovered the halls of Amenti, which were probably the Galzu, but it was a higher dimensional species. And apparently, in every sphere and everywhere in the cosmos, they have a station, and they're paying attention to the evolution of the species that are on each body, each sphere, each planet, each whatever. So he describes it at a great length in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, how he found them, and they invited him to become one of them. So he studied with them. And what they could do is they put their original form, so he put his Nagashita, or Anunnaki form, in stasis, and he sent himself down as the thrice-born Hermes. So we have his record of 3 times he came down through
Hermes Trismegistus, is that it?
Huh?
Hermes Trismegistus?
Right.
Yeah, he's an Anunnaki, and he wanted to know what it's like to be human. So he came in and he experienced a lifetime, 3 of them. And so that's what we encounter. A lot of people say, I'm Inanna, I'm Enki, and so they're not limited to one form. So it's very possible that you could be a thread of the consciousness of one of the Anunnaki, and so you go through life. I'm Enki. I'm Marduk. But that's part of the explanation, because we get a lot of people that come and say that they're one of these people. We don't make anybody wrong. We say, okay, so you've accessed this information. What message is there for all of us? What wisdom?
And they don't have it. Okay, so I have a question now on some of the things you guys just talked about, right? The subjugation of women, the concept of slavery, of royalty. Where did these concepts come from? Because the primitive species we came from didn't have these things in their culture.
Let's go back from Nibiru. They did indeed have that, and that's what they ran over their slave population.
I mean, Homo erectus here, they didn't have that in their culture. So did that come from the Anunnaki?
Yes.
Yes, they had a war, and there were too many, the men got wiped out. There were too many women and not enough men on Nibiru. So when they started to have the first wife, second wife, the recognized royal births, the ones, so they started the hierarchy, patriarchy system, and they brought that with them. And then it got further enhanced when Marduk married Sarpanet, and Anu said, well, your wife, since she's half human, isn't as valuable, and your children cannot become king. And so there was all these dictates that came down. And so it was over. She established the tantric goddess culture. She was one of them. And she got into a fight with Marduk because Marduk was instrumental in the death of her beloved Dumuzi. And so they got into war, which, long story short, ended up as in Sodom and Gomorrah, which almost wiped out everybody, but enough survived. And so they just took everything behind the scenes after that. And that's what we have today. The Anunnaki are still behind the rulers of this planet. They're at the top. They're the all-seeing eye. Yeah. They're at the top of the pyramid, and they keep us in a perpetual slave system. They've introduced money to enslave us, and we all worship the god of money, and we think that that's the most important thing in the world. But it's just a control mechanism. And every time that we start getting things together, they introduce another religion, and everything is out there because they want it, and it serves their purposes. And part of it is the economic slavery. We're all corporate economic slaves, and we're in black consciousness struggle, and we can never get ahead. We don't have enough money to even, be able to pay our bills, keep the lights on half the time. We're one disaster away, each and every one of us, from bankruptcy. And the power, the 1%, the billionaires, and the multi-millionaires, they're all part of the same club. And they put us in the Republican Democrat political game, but it's just another divide and conquer technique to keep us enslaved.
Okay,
we are all slaves.
That was my question. Why divide us? To keep us in slavery?
Yes, and to keep that's how they maintain power control by the introduction of money as how we do things. They control all the systems. They're masters of psychology and systems analysis and manipulation, and we are only using such a small percentage of our brains. They have 100% usage of their brains, and they have the total information of how of everything, how it came to be. So they have the information, they control the information, and they control us completely. But we're waking up.
So what was the reason for holding us back? Why deny us knowledge?
Because we can kill them.
What happened was, for example, in the Iliad, Diomedes ran up to Inanna, and with his sword, he cut her arm, and she was bleeding. Wow, she's a goddess, and she's bleeding. And of course, they froze everybody and got her out of there. But they realized, you know what? Our heroes can do. Jacob, one of my ancestors, fought one of the Anunnaki lords and pinned him and released him on the condition that he would get a blessing, and a blessing he would be named Israel, which means he who fought a lord or an Anunnaki. And so that we know that we have heroes, and we have the ability to, especially there's millions of us, and there was only 300 or so of those that stayed here.
So they set up the priesthoods and the kingship so they could go behind the scenes, and the secret orders and the Order of the Snake, all these secret societies. So, even if they walk among us, we're not going to know that they're walking among us, because we don't know the names of the top at the very top. We just get like Queen Elizabeth, and then we, blame them, and periodically they get taken out. The Tsar got taken out in the beginning of the 20th century, and Marie Antoinette lost her head. So they always have front people that can be taken out while they remain protected no matter what. And they kill popes too. Yeah.
I have a question. About blood types and how, if you, while we're talking about the genetic history of man, and now we're focusing on we've noticed there's a lot of abductions and things like that happen to people that are Rh negative, and they're either blue-eyed or green-eyed, or there are other factors. But why that specific blood type? Does that mean that that's what they were trying to get out of this whole DNA soup? And does that mean that there's only a certain amount of people with that type that will continue on genetically? And does that phase out the rest of the blood types? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what their end goal is on that.
Well, it's not 100% that they're only doing certain blood types. We're not sure. I think George Cavasilla says that with his information, they take each and every one of us. So we can take all the pigs and cows and chickens, and we know how to do that. We billions, right? Well, they take truncated or at special points throughout the person's lifetime. Let's say 5 and 10 and whatever, and they determine through their testing which ones they want to work with, and we're not sure what they're exactly looking for, but it's certain. Maybe your ability to not drop over dead when they walk past, because some people they select in the underground dumps people that are not afraid of them when they walk by, because early on when they'd have all these soldiers guarding and the aliens would walk by, they drop over dead. They'd have a heart attack. So they're testing for certain things, but I don't, we don't know. We're not combining all this information from all the researchers. There's too much competition, even amongst the people that are researching this phenomenon. We're not unified, but so it does appear that they lean toward Rh negative, but it's not 100%. So that would mean all Rh negative people would get abducted and selected for the program. That's not happening, right? And then there are people that are selected by the program that are not Rh negative, that are not blue-eyed. So it's an unknown. But
huge
it is
abductions
Right.
in Mexico
Right.
and Venezuela. It's not just
right. So it's
Well, when it comes down to, I'll tell you what, if an alien walked by me, I don't think I'd have a heart attack. I'd be, hey, where are you parked and when are we leaving? I'm not kidding.
Point.
kidding.
That is exactly the point. You may never have seen a rhinoceros or but you know that rhinoceros exists, and when you see something like that, you adjust to it. So what? So things look different.
So do you think
Are you an experiencer? Tallahassee, are you an experiencer?
Yes.
I can't. I had some experiences. I can't definitively say that there was alien abduction other than the weird humming sounds and the lights. And then me not remembering what happened.
Experiences, showing up in different clothes. Tell them everything. Don't leave anything out.
I've ended up in different areas of the house. I've ended up in different areas of the neighborhood, and I've ended up in different areas with different clothing. So at first, I remember one instance I was really, really young. I think I was around 19. And I was lying in bed, went to sleep, just like everybody else does normally, didn't expect anything to happen. And I really, at that time, was not into the prospect of aliens. I mean, it's always had been something cool in the movies, but I never really studied it. And I mean, I was only 19. So I go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and everyone is questioning me like crazy. The moment I opened my eyes, like, where were you? How come you took off? Even my girlfriend at the time was just, because I mean, I was laying in bed next to her, so it's like, what in the world? How could she not have known? I mean, how could I have done this without not knowing where I went? Apparently, in the middle of the night, she woke up and I was gone. She went outside looking for me. She asked my cousins and everything that were there at the house, because we were all over there, I believe, for the holidays, and at my cousin's house, and they were all looking for me. They thought, well, maybe they went to, maybe he went to a friend's house the holiday, but it's not like me to get up in the middle of the night and just decide to go somewhere. So they kept looking for me, figured I was okay. Everybody went home, which in itself made me feel unimportant. After they told me, it's like, why didn't you call somebody? You didn't know where I was, so you went home, went to bed. And then the next morning, I start getting grilled. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I had absolutely no idea that I was even gone. I went to bed. I woke up to all these questions, and I was in trouble for leaving. I didn't know where I was, and then it's happened, a few more times later in my life, where I had instances where, I'd wake up on the on the couch, but I was in bed, and then my wife would wake up and go, where were you? Look for me, trying to find me, and can't find me, and I'm in the backyard, or I'm over the fence. It's like, how do you get over the fence when you're unconscious? I couldn't figure it out. So, but I don't recall anything from any of the abductions, if you want to call them that, other than the fact that the last time it happened, I started hearing a humming noise, and it was almost like there was a weird reddish yellow light in my room. It wasn't bright. It was almost like a film, a filter, that color that came over my eyes. And I'm starting to hear this like waving kind of humming. And I turn over to ask my wife, do you hear that? And before I even got the words out of my mouth, I was unconscious, just like that. And the next morning, I asked her if she remembers me asking her if she could hear that noise. It happened a few more times in that week. And then I went over my security footage, which was weird because it was doing some weird stuff, blanking out. I was seeing like a beam of light going into the room on one of the images, and then my cameras would blink out completely. And then after that, when it stopped, it never happened again. I didn't have problems with the cameras beforehand. I didn't have problems with them afterwards. But it just during that week, and I can't explain any of that because I can't recall anything. And as much as I felt like something took place, I still struggle with it being part of my reality because I wasn't conscious for it, or at least I don't remember.
Have you ever done hypnosis on those episodes?
I haven't. I've always been kind of leery about it, just because if it's not someone you thoroughly trust, hypnosis can work both ways. You can implant information and you can extract it. So I still haven't brought myself to the point where I trust somebody enough to bring me back and try to find out what happened. And on the other side of that, as much as I am intrigued to find out what happened, I'm also somewhat terrified, and I don't know why that excites me.
Right. Oh, that's common. Somebody will come along eventually that you can trust. If not, you can do your own. You can learn self-hypnosis and trust yourself. But yeah, sometimes we don't want to know what's going on because knowing is sometimes more frightening. But eventually, if you find out, though, it sets you in many ways as well. What do you have to say about that, Sash?
No, we're interviewing them, honey.
Okay, so and who else has had experiences with our team today? Anybody else have contact experiences? Mysterious?
I have, but I don't remember any of it. But I do have an implant in my right forearm. But I remember when my first son was born, and my sister had a baby the same time I did, which was weird. We were both pregnant at the same time. It was her second, my first, and we were living at my parents' at the time, and we had two of everything, and we went down for a feeding at the exact same time for the babies, and next thing you know, it was 4 hours missing time. We can't believe we were standing there looking out a window for 4 hours. There's no way. And that's when I noticed the chip the next day. The fences were rattling. We were in pitch darkness. We watched 12 to 15, even more little ships out in the cornfields. All my parents' backyard was all cornfield from as far as you can see. And then before we saw the big ship come in and the other ones go in it. And we tried waking everybody up and nobody would wake up to see it. And then it kind of just, I don't know, that's the only one I have but I don't remember anything about it except for that. And then I had the chip in my arm. That's all I know.
Let me give you a suggestion, if you will. Imagine there's a little teeny you, and it enters your body at a convenient place and proceeds to the place where the implant is. And tell me when you get to the implant from the inside and what that's like as you imagine this journey through your body to the locale of the implant. Tell me when you get there.
I'm there.
Okay. And what I would like you to do is to really contemplate the implant and so much that you can feel it, and then identify with it. Pretend you are that implant. And as the implant, tell me what your existence inside this person is. What are you like, implant? What is your existence?
Right.
Say it.
I just have
What
I think
are
it
your
has to do
qualities?
with I think it has to
Say
do something. Pardon?
Pretend you're it and say, I have to do with, and pretend you're it.
Pretend you're the implant, Pam, and speak.
I am the implant.
Yes.
And
what is your function? And what are your characteristics?
I'm seeing like what I get from it has to do with fertility is what I'm getting from it.
Okay. Tell Pam some more about what your relation to fertility is. What is your message about fertility?
This is what I've always got intuitively, and I'm getting right now is that they were taking my eggs is what I always got.
Say some more about that. What's all this about? Tell her what's in behind getting her eggs.
Reproduction, human, and splicing of DNAs and stuff like that. It's just what we were talking about. It's what I'm getting right now, and that's what I'm feeling.
Good. Now become your little self, the little person inside. And what I want you to do, little person inside, is to touch with your love and light. Touch the implant and notice what happens when you do that.
Feel warm. Feel good.
Is there anything you'd like to say to your implant?
It's no longer needed. Now I'm getting they just keep an eye on me, and now that makes sense. That's why I'm seeing all these angelic orbs in my house all the time. The smaller white ones, those are the extraterrestrials that are coming.
Wow. Is there anything else you would like to know from the implant while you're down there inside of her body?
And she doesn't need to know anymore is what I'm getting right now. That's all she needs.
Okay, so it's time to exit the body, to go back out the way you came and come back out to being your regular big self.
Yep.
And reflect on the experience of going inside for a bit.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yep. But I did get something with my children now. I don't know. Something with my kids now. I think
Dr. Lessin?
Say some more about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pam has lost two pregnancies, Pam?
Yeah, but I had 8 children.
Okay, and Tallahassee, how many pregnancies did your wife lose?
2.
Janet, did you ever lose any pregnancies?
I've never had a live birth. They would never let me give birth. Never.
So that's another factor that we have found as a common denominator amongst experiencers.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a live birth. Does that count?
They usually let you have one. I was always pissed at them because I knew that. It's like you let other people have children, but what's with that? But I get that my path is not to be a mother. My path was to do what I'm doing.
You're the mother of humanity.
Right, or something else. Yeah. And then I've been told that I have, because it's just about DNA, and they want certain, I mean, I'm nothing to reproduce, right? But it's my genetics, they like, that I have, millions of children in the cosmos, because they don't limit it to the Earth.
Right. That's what I'm getting too. That's what I got.
Galaxies.
What they don't limit what our species to the Earth?
course not. They're experimenting throughout the cosmos and other solar systems and galaxies and throughout the universe. They want to diversify creation. One of the primary reasons they like our genetic material is that they adapt it to other environments and other planets and other worlds. And they're like big artists, and they keep combining us in different ways. It's their expression. And so I don't know if you've ever read the book about Planet Serpo, the project to planets, where they had the exchange program. Anyway, when they had this exchange program with the human astronauts that were going to the planet Serpo, which is a gray planet, they got all upset because somebody died en route to Serpo, and they just took them